Where are the Black pop stars? A question that seems lazy to some, but to others is worth investigating. Eager fans have kept an eye on new pop girl contenders, especially new Black pop girls, rushing them in while also being overly critical to push them further faster. And it almost always has backfired in the modern day, expecting them to figure it out immediately while having higher expectations and more demands. However, should pop music even be the barometer for Black artists' success? For Black artists to say they made it, global domination, should they even have to do the coveted pop crossover to get their flowers and be taken seriously? More promo, more support, and investment, not just Twitter virality and TikTok acclaim. Black pop stars haven't disappeared. They're just not being pushed. The visibility and the invisibility all at the same damn time. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, it's your girl Cameron and I am back at it again with another video. We are going to discuss the Black pop star. What's happening? I get tons of comments saying, hey, there's all these new pop girls coming out, but I feel like the Black girls making pop music cannot gain the traction, even though Black pop stars, Black artists have been pivotal in pop for decades and decades and decades. Black female pop artists like Diana Ross, Tina Turner, Donna Summer, Whitney Houston, Janet Jackson, Mariah Carey. You could even say Brandy, Beyonce, Rihanna. Would pop music look the same without their contributions? I'll let you answer that. But it is important that our voices are heard in musical spaces, especially pop. They're huge cultural drivers. So while the question, where are the Black pop stars, is obvious, they're here. They have been, and they're not going anywhere. But I want to discuss why it seems there's been a decline, less mainstream visibility, push, promotion, and also how audiences contribute to that and how we should probably navigate that in the future. At the end of this video, I will be listing some people that I have been enjoying, and I want you guys to comment that down below as well. Hit that subscribe button down below. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Let's go. So to start this conversation, I want to talk about the genre barrier. One of the major hurdles that Black artists, but Black pop stars have to face, and the pop star persona that comes with it. And when I talk about pop music in this context, I'm talking about it as a genre, not just popular music. So the components of usually a danceable beat, a catchy melody, a repetitive chorus, a certain song structure that then borrows from other genres like R&B, maybe rock, country, etc. Just to let you guys know that I am making that delineation. Throughout music history, Black artists have been innovative, right? From genre creation like rock and roll, heavily contributing to country music, blues, disco, R&B, hip hop, pop. The culture is exported, but the creators are often not.
I really believe it's a conspiracy because the story always ends the same. We pioneer, we innovate. At the end of the story, it's not an accident. It's happened on purpose.
And there was also segregation. So a lot of Black artists in the US weren't able to really cross promote or get as big as they could because they were barred from certain venues. So that's another historical layer you gotta add. Genres like R&B and hip hop have become almost designated for us. If you can't cross that pop threshold, you're kind of stuck there, even if you make music that is outside of that realm. However, as Black audiences, we tend to hold our artists, pop and R&B, to higher standards, while the general public may allow other pop stars to have mediocre voices and minimal dance skills. I think a lot of that comes from growing up in the church. A lot of Black families grew up in the church. You could go down the street and hear some of the best vocalists that live in your community that live right around the corner from you. Now, you guys know that I don't know everything, I don't claim to, but I take a lot of pride on my research. And in order for me to do this, I try to go to a cafe, coffee shop at least 1 to 2 times a week so I can get away, really focus, and so my cat is not bothering me every 5 seconds. If you know, you know. When I go to cafes that I have not been very aware of and I've let slip through the cracks is connecting to that public Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi networks at public cafes are often free to the public, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that, right? If you're using the right one. But sometimes, I know I have, you might do it, you choose a random Wi-Fi, you connect to it not really knowing that it could be a trap. A fake network setup that they call a man-in-the-middle attack or an MTM attack. A network setup that's compromised by criminals who aim to intercept your personal data. Think of it like cafe Wi-Fi's evil twin. And now you could have criminals harvesting any sensitive data or information that you enter. Well, I can now encrypt my online traffic at all times with today's video partner, NordVPN, helping keep criminals out of my precious data. NordVPN aims to make the internet better and safer than it should be from online threats, censorship, and surveillance. A VPN, or virtual private network, is what encrypts your data, making it harder for others to track your online activity or access your information. But it can also change your IP and virtual location while your real one remains private. So no one knows which country or city that you are browsing from. And this makes it so much safer to connect to public Wi-Fi, browsing the internet, and also while you're traveling. Like for instance, I went to Bangkok last Christmas, and it was really my first time traveling out the country for real, and I didn't realize there were some websites or shows and things like that I couldn't access because I was out there. And had I known, I would have had NordVPN and it would have been seamless, could have browsed from anywhere in the world. And it is indeed the fastest VPN on the planet. And there's so many protection features that they do offer. They provide 24/7 customer support, 30-day money-back guarantee for all uses, and one account can protect up to 10 devices, y'all. 10 devices, so there's no excuse. You will be covered. And their Threat Protection Pro blocks malware, scams, and trackers. The last thing any of you guys need is to become a victim of another data leak. It happens too often these days. And NordVPN's dark web monitor will constantly scan and discover hacker hangouts, alerting you if any of your information is up for sale. So let NordVPN protect your privacy by using my link in the description below, nordvpn.com/Cameron, to get an exclusive NordVPN deal plus 4 months extra, 4 months on top of that. The best deal for NordVPN currently that you can get with a creator like me. Thanks so much to NordVPN for partnering with today's video, and let's get right back into it. I know y'all are ready. There has been this higher expectation, and I don't think higher expectations are bad, but it can be a blessing and a curse because while we have higher expectations, sometimes it's never good enough. Sometimes it's never good enough. So the modern dilemma with fans trying to kind of dictate your career, you do R&B and fans are like, nah, I want her to be bigger. She should go pop. This is boring. This is tired. They go pop. Then it's, what is this? Go back to your roots. Where are the vocals? We didn't want that. You know what I mean? It's a balancing act that Black artists specifically have to really, really put their finger on. And it's hard to make everybody happy. With the internet at play now as well, it can be very confusing to create a focus group. These artists are going on Twitter and seeing thousands of comments that completely differ one another. Do I go pop? Do I stay R&B? Because when I stay R&B, y'all aren't supporting the records, but when I go pop, y'all are talking about how it's too pop. It's very confusing. And so when I did an unpopular opinion video weeks and weeks and weeks ago, somebody did leave an opinion where they wished that Tyla, Normani, and Chloe would really go pop because we need more Black pop girls. But even the idea of listing Chloe, Normani, and Tyla as the main or only options in itself is limiting. But I also said in that video that I don't believe in forcing these ladies to be in this pop genre if they do not want to be there, because there are other Black artists who are making more traditionally pop music. You have to remember things have to align, and the artist has their own vision and we can't make anybody do what we want them to. Throughout all of this, I've also really started to fine tune my opinion on the R&B genre classification. I used to, and I still get really frustrated when we talk about genre and award season, or even Black artists or artists just having to label their music, how we often get pigeonholed into R&B and hip hop, R&B very specifically early on, despite our music possibly having a mix of influences. The same thing that white pop artists can blend their pop with R&B and house and country and still be pop, we have not been afforded that same leniency. So the same way we fight to be considered pop, why does it also feel like a shun to be considered R&B? R&B is not a diss if that's what you do. And I think sometimes you guys are trying to take these R&B girls and make them into like this pop thing, and they don't want to be this pop thing. They want to be rooted in like more traditional R&B, more alternative R&B. And you guys are pushing this narrative, and that in turn puts higher and higher expectations that they weren't even trying. That wasn't even a part of the equation initially. But I do think some artists desire the pop label, Black artists do. And as fans, we strive for that because pop gets more promotion. It is more visible. To reach pop status is this coveted label because it often equals crossover. It means that you have more eyes on you, right? And R&B is not always as funded, definitely not, or pushed, as there is considerably, I guess, a lesser demand, but I think audiences' ears have also been primed for pop. There are some genres, not just R&B, but some genres that might be too sophisticated or complex or grand and less relatable. If you weren't primed to like that, it's hard for you to jump in it and appreciate it in its fullness. So I get that's also why a lot of us fight, like, I want you to be pop, I want you to be pop, because then you will finally get the credit you deserve. If you stay in R&B, you're just going to become a legacy act in 15 years. No one's going to want you to make anything else. That's the real challenge for a lot of Black pop stars historically, having to pick a side and knowing when to cross over. When is that right moment? Modern day artists who are exploring these sentiments, Tyler, the Creator, said it famously. SZA has said it. Tinashe has said it. She said that when it comes to Black women, people want to put you in almost race-driven musical genres. And Tinashe says, I was creating music that didn't necessarily fall into what people considered Black female music, and there was a pushback. And so because her label didn't really know what to do with her, Tinashe got sidelined because she didn't fit into the urban mold that they wanted her to be in. Even though if she looked a different way, they would have had no issue pushing and promoting her on pop radio. However, I do want to say that if you make R&B music, there is nothing wrong with being placed in the R&B category. Black artists wanting to do R&B and wanting to thrive there. Everybody does not need to cross over. But we know for a lot of Black pop stars, many of them had to establish themselves as an R&B artist first, right, as their point of entry.
Michael, why is it, do you think, that you're able to cross over when so many others aren't able to, from R&B to pop? I mean, it's like a natural for you. You have something within your records, and that other
the same way other pop artists come on the scene flaunting their popness, and they're given that label, they're given that promotion off the gate, they're given that money off the gate. You're a pop artist, we're going to push you like one, so they can get off the ground running and they can borrow from other sounds and still be pop, is not often the same luxury that Black pop stars have had historically. It was like, you have to go through a pipeline. You probably started in the church, so you started in gospel. Then some executive found you, then you went into R&B. Then you do that major crossover hit. You do the pop thing for a minute. And then eventually you get kind of tired because you kind of feel like, hey, I want to go back to, what I like and go back to R&B. And there's a lot of judgment that comes with this timeline and this pipeline from both sides. And one of the biggest examples of this, we have to look at Whitney Houston. She began singing in the church. She comes from a musical family, a musical legacy. And she did and has always loved R&B. But around 1985 is when she actually debuted on the scene. Her debut album had the record How Will I Know? And later in 1987, she had her smash hit I Wanna Dance with Somebody. Her label and her executive, Clive Davis, really helped curate what they wanted her sound to be. Now, Whitney Houston did vocal produce on her songs. That was her superpower. Like, you give me the song, I will tell you how I'm going to sing it. So let's get that very clear. But Clive Davis intentionally marketed her from the beginning as this crossover pop artist.
The difficult part was, how are we going to get Whitney Houston on popular radio?
The American music recording industry, mid-'80s, was very segregated.
And this was one of the first times I think this had been done very intentionally. She has the voice of an angel. People need to hear this shit. So we're going to start off the gate to make her palatable and make her music more pop adjacent. And these records like How Will I Know, I Wanna Dance with Somebody did that.
And they play a demo of a song. And the demo singer could have been Olivia Newton-John. And that if you took it literally, you would never think that that is a song that Whitney Houston should record. It was much too middle of the road mainstream pop. But in my head, I heard an arrangement, and knowing Whitney's soulfulness, natural soulfulness, I knew that she would sing, I want to dance with somebody, but that she would make the audience feel, I want to go to bed with somebody.
And yes, there were some Black people who were not thrilled with this, felt like the music was sanitized. That, hey, like, you come from this gospel royalty, like, where is the grit? In reality, behind the scenes, Clive Davis was intentionally marketing her and trying to kind of distance her from Black media. And to clarify, they did market her to Black audiences. They did want to utilize the Black listeners, R&B radio, etc. But very early on, they did focus more on white media promotion. And they didn't want it to be too hard for her to cross over. So she didn't follow the traditional pattern that a lot of other Black artists before her did, if that makes sense. And then in Arista Records, head of promotions, revealed that they were told to send back songs for Whitney that sounded too Black. So I understand why Black audiences, granted, I don't know if they had all this information at the time, but they were onto something, because when it comes to Black artists and Black pop stars, it's kind of like this pawning. Or why do you have to cross over to pop to be respected? Like, why can't you just stay over here and do your thing? To the point where you had Reverend Al Sharpton creating a boycott for Whitney Houston and calling her Whitey Houston, and her being booed at the 1989 Soul Train Awards. Controversial is what Clive Davis had done, and I don't think that your Blackness should have to be the cost, that you should have to put that in a tiny little box and push it away. I think that's very problematic. He also was trying to kind of like revolutionize, hey, let's just make this Black girl a pop star. Why does she got to go through all the R&B channels, and like, let's just do that. I also do want to highlight that Michael Jackson opened a lot of doors. There was a lot of segregation on MTV where Black artists weren't being played. So he absolutely was a beacon. But I think for female pop artist, Whitney Houston was the person that was able to revolutionize in that sense. Because I do think that media is a lot harder physically on women when it comes to image and when you're crossing over to the masses. And let's be honest, in 1980s America, the popular audience to have was white audiences. That was the majority. Yes, there was a sanitization almost that people perceived Whitney's talent to be in pop. In the 80s and 90s, politically and socially, there were a lot of conversations about what does assimilation look like, what does respectability politics look like, and representation, and what's harming and helping us. And I think Whitney Houston fell at the crossfires of that conversation, even though my girl just wanted to make music. Whitney inherently doing pop shouldn't have been the problem, because Whitney's presence in pop was groundbreaking. For there to be a Black girl, a Black pop star that could just like be that, and not have to go through all these hurdles and hoops and play this whole game of like,
okay, you gotta be in R&B for this many years, and then I gotta cross and shake hands with these people.
Like, she was able to kind of just make pop records. But Whitney herself did feel a little bit confined by the pop label as well. And I think at some point she was like, hey, I like R&B and I want to kind of get down. So then in 1990, you have I'm Your Baby Tonight. That was more of a New Jack Swing record. That was more of like an R&B record. That is a great example of a push and pull that exists, a nuance that exists when it comes to trying to cater to two different audiences that Black pop stars, those who want to cross over, have to face. I think of Beyonce. Beyonce was like a little secret for years. Not a little secret. Y'all know what I mean. She was never a secret. Like, she was getting big. But my point is, the sheer shock that I got, guys, when I was a kid, people really didn't get Beyonce like that. Like Single Ladies was their introduction. That Irreplaceable was their introduction. I was like shocked, actually. I was shocked. I just kind of thought everybody was like listening to the same things. Like, it took for her to have to do this crossover to do Single Ladies. That is what it took for her. For audiences to embrace her as a legitimate pop star, even though she could have been classified as a genuine pop star. Like, to me, after Crazy in Love and Deja Vu, there should have been no more need to prove this crossoverness. I don't even know if that's a word. There shouldn't needed to be that, but it was. She had to play this game.
Scared of lonely
It's a nasty
again.
girl.
How R&B
Yeah.
is what made us fall in love
Nasty.
with her.
A great
Pop
girl.
R&B would not exist
A nasty
if she
record.
didn't put in that R&B work.
And the thing that Beyonce did so well, and her team and her dad did so well, is they always knew when it was time to transition. And so that's why now you see Beyonce at a time in her career where she's kind of spinning the block and now doing all of these things that maybe she felt too confined to do or she couldn't do before, because of the rigidness sometimes that Black pop stars have to implore to make the right moves and make the right connections to get to where they want to get, to achieve global domination status. These artists are often trying to navigate both. The art of knowing when to go pop. Because we often have to start off one way. We create an audience that likes us like this, and then we need to garner a whole lot more of an audience when we go pop. And so you're left with some of your fans being like, hey, you just gonna leave us here like this? But then it's like the other audience don't want to hear that. And so for me, I feel like I'm a good person to bridge the gap, because I'm also someone who loves all kinds of music. I love pop music. Growing up, my mom listened to a lot of 80s rock. That's kind of my experience. So like, I'm cool with like my R&B artists wanting to try pop. I'm cool with that. But a lot of people are not. Still bring the vocals though. We need vocals in pop. We do. Still bring the vocals, but I'm okay with that. And now to take this to the modern day of a couple people who have kind of received this push and pull at a smaller scale, a much smaller scale. So when we talk about pop star contenders today, there's this pressure for Black pop artists, Black pop girls specifically, to choose a lane. Just like back in the day. You see how all this is coming full circle. Pick a side. Because we talked about Chloe Bailey, every 3 to 5 business days, y'all are on Twitter. That girl posts a video of her producing like she did recently. And it's think pieces. And it was a whole thing about, no, she should be doing R&B. No, she should be doing pop. What is this production? She needs to be doing pop. And I was on record saying, when I was asked, I didn't solicit this opinion, but I was asked, I said, I actually think I like Chloe Bailey's like dance pop music more. I think it's more fun. It's vibrant. And even though it might not be as technically challenging on her vocals, we also know that Chloe does produce. Like, she has her hands in other things, so she can flex that skill. I don't believe in forcing her hand in either direction. I don't. And I do understand why a lot of you guys do, because it's like, hey girl, like, we want you to be big, but you kind of have to choose. That's just the way that the industry works. They're going to make you say what type of whatever you are. What are you? And that's how they know how to like push you. I feel like you guys are so hell-bent and focused on she needs to do R&B or she needs to do pop. Versus Normani, I've been on record saying that, I don't know, I actually kind of like her dark R&B records. I think there's something effortless about it with her. And that dark vibe really goes well with like her artistry. And so Motivation was cute. And that was a record that she said at one point she was not connected with it. She didn't really want to release it. That wasn't really her. But I think her team really wanted to push this pop thing.
To the cut, she initially told her label she didn't like the song. It didn't feel like it represented me, and I'd already known how that felt. But the label was like, sorry, it's coming out. Normani says she compromised with the music video. Quote, this needs to be black as f.
And this is my exact problem. In the comments of this video, there was someone who said, hey, she should have listened to them. They were gonna set her up to be this pop star, but she wanted to be R&B. And then proceeded to say it was dumb to drop an R&B album in the summer because R&B is not summer music. And who says R&B isn't for summer? That's my issue. If Normani was tired of being in Fifth Harmony and stuck singing music that she didn't have any interest in, why the hell would she want to do that in her solo career? Numerical success is not everything. It is not everything. And to me, I have more respect for her fighting for her own artistic integrity, if that means that much to her, than simply fitting into this pop star mold, this bubblegum pop star mold because her label told her to. And this is the exact issue that Black pop artists have. Everybody is telling them what they should be. So for me, especially after I heard Dopamine, I was kind of like, I don't know. I kind of like her in R&B. Like, if she wants to do this dark R&B, I'm not going to unnecessarily push this pop crossover agenda for Normani. Like, because why can't it also be good enough for some people to just be R&B? And I get it. Y'all want people to be able to appreciate it. And talent is often more appreciated and pushed in pop. I get that. But at what point are we also going to tell the audiences and the masses to also meet us where we're at? That we're in this rat race of like, you got to do pop. You got to do pop. More and more of that I would love to see. People being able to like chart with R&B records and stay there and people meet them there. Versus having to play this checkers game of like, oh, I need to go pop to be this big. I got to do this. At some point, we also have to be content of like, hey, R&B is good enough. We need to push and promote the artists who are doing R&B and let them be that. And we need to push and promote the Black girls who are trying to do pop and let them be that. The next section we have to talk about is theft, thievery. So there was a recent robbery. And we got to talk about it. It's very relevant. a French pop star named Isolde, I believe that's how you say it, who spoke up against a K-pop artist. It was really the director who stole the visual frame for frame for her music video called Bitch You Could Never. And the director of the music video for the song came out and confirmed that yes, she was the inspiration, that he loves her work, and yes, he did reference it, stating that it was not the artist's fault, the singer's fault by any means, and that next time this director will, quote, conduct more thorough research during the creative process and ensure I clearly show respect for the original creators and the artists who inspired me. That's a funny way of saying you stole. So Isolde did not back down and was on Twitter making it known, hey, as a French black pop artist, this happens too freaking much. She detailed that she spent about $100K on the visual and that she advances her team salaries. She advances tours. So she's using a lot of her own money to push and promote. And she's gotten very far, actually. You guys should go check out some of her music. Like, she has this very great, beautiful tone. Get upset that she is calling for her work to be credited properly and actually delete the video, which they did. But the point of all of this is I wanted to highlight Isolde's words. She made a response coming from a black pop artist trying to make it today. She said, quote, black artists have shaped pop culture from day one, yet we're the least supported in history. Black women don't flop because our art isn't good. We flop because people don't show up for us the way that they do for other pop artists, period. Why? Maybe because the industry benefits from our creativity, but rarely invest in us. Duh. Let me tell you something. The way the world shows up for the biggest pop stars, that same energy black artists deserve too. And I think this is the major takeaway, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video. So when we question, where are the black pop stars? Are you supporting them? Are you dedicating some time to like searching for it? Are you dedicating some time to like commenting on a post, liking it? Because shit like this happens. Theft happens. Disrespect happens. And then you have this great talent that goes to the wayside. Just to kind of give some context to maybe some of this ignorance. There's a lot of factors going on that's also beyond the fans. Lack of review and interpretation. I do notice that a lot of pop culture review channels, kind of like my own, people in my niche, pages and critics, do not speak about nor study or write about black artists commonly at the same rate or even at all. When I see pop critics, when I see pop journalists, people who cover pop music who have very little knowledge of other styles, rhythm and blues, R&B, that's like a red flag for me. If you talk about pop music and you like don't know anything about these styles and you don't care to, that makes no sense. And the reason why it makes no sense is because a lot of these genres are the building block of what has made pop pop. So if you have no recollection or you don't care to search up other styles, like how pop has had its EDM phase, its disco phase, its house phase, its R&B phase, its hip hop phase, its country phase. A lot of these genres have been started and propelled by black artists. So if you are covering pop music and you have no desire but to listen to just like Taylor Swift and Sabrina Carpenter, I'm sorry. That's limiting to me. People aren't valuing that history enough and they aren't reporting on it. And in turn, when the masses consume content like this, or they read articles or they listen to podcasts, and you're listening to people who have no recollection or don't even care to talk about it, there's less of an appetite. There's less of a hunger for it. 2, laziness, or maybe not so much. We have ample exposure to tons of artists with just a click of a button now. We have so much exposure. And so there is really not a great excuse as to why you cannot discover these black artists and support them. However, I also do not demonize people fully. I think a lot of you guys leave out the fact that when you have a lot of options and there's so many people being funneled in, it is hard to know where to focus your attention. I feel like that's like human psychology. And yes, this has been studied by psychologists. A psychologist by the name of Barry Schwartz did a study and wrote a book on what they call the paradox of choice, or what you can call choice overload. This happens when a person is presented with too many options, where you may become unmotivated to choose a choice or not make any choice at all. The idea that we often settle for the good enough option versus the optimal one. So pop radio, it is still a bit of a gatekeeper. It is, even though it's not as prevalent, with black women historically facing a harder battle to get pop spin. The reason why I also say, yes, we are being lazy, but also not so much. A lot of people forget about streaming algorithms and playlisting. That plays a major part. All of these streaming services have a system. And in order to get pushed or promoted, a lot of the times you do have to put your music in these boxes. And then they also do base it off of clicks and plays. So if X listens to Y, then I'm going to start recommending this to this audience because I just keep seeing this correlation, and this artist is putting their music as R&B even though it's more pop. So now you get stuck in this R&B loop because the streaming algorithm is kind of pushing you there. There's tons of articles about the streaming algorithm and how it can create genre bias and sometimes racial bias. I will actually link those in the description for those of you guys who want to get a little more technical. Lastly, lack of promotion and who is promoted. When we ask audiences to tune in and support, that does boost numbers, guys. And numbers are not everything, as I don't think that should be the focus, because you should enjoy music and it should happen organically. That is the number one thing. But for those of us who want to find solutions as listeners, y'all, we need to get our shit together. Businesses do respond to numbers. That is with any business. But more and more increasingly with music, it's not about potential as much anymore. It's not about artist development. We've talked about this at Timer 20. It is about numbers, clicks, and that's why they're hiring TikTok artists. You got followers, boom. So yes, we could be sitting here on TikTok and Twitter talking about, oh my gosh, this person's so great. They're so awesome. Giving them a viral tweet, a viral hit. But if no one's buying or clicking, honey, that does nothing for them. That does nothing. They'll still get dropped tomorrow. That is merely just a platform to start it, but that is expected to translate into tangible sales. And I do not love that because I do think that music can have cultural impact without it being like this big grand sales and numbers and stuff. I don't think it should have to equate that. But when it comes to actually who they're investing in, who are they going to give the money to fund music videos? Who are they going to give the money to fund these big grand performances that we want to see from Black pop stars who can really pop their shit on stage? They're going to fish that money out for the people who are producing numbers. But outside of fans themselves, there are biases at these labels. Who? This is a rhetorical question. Ask yourself. You answer this. Who makes up the majority of these executives? What do they look like?
We don't want the companies bigger than the artists. We want the people respected and the stars that we make stars to shine in the galaxy for us.
This is very important because throughout the years, Black artists have been taken advantage of completely. And it's time now that we have to put a stop to this incredible injustice. People from James Brown to Sammy Davis Jr., some of the real pioneers that inspired me to be the entertainer that I am. These artists are always on tour because if they stopped touring, they would totally go broken. The record companies really, really do conspire against their artists. They steal, they cheat, they do whatever they can, especially the Black artists.
When you talk about A&Rs at a label who are representing these artists, who are these people's visionary and help shape the vision, are there A&Rs that understand and respect their vision? Are there A&Rs who are challenging these structures on genre and not looking at Black artists monolithically? And so are there people in positions of power that support the vision while also not exploiting it?
I'm going to take you back to a label meeting that I had that honestly mirrored many label meetings that I had. I would play my songs. The record executive said, these are hits, but I don't understand your artistry. But you could sell it to insert artist here. And every single time it was insert artist here, that artist was white. So for whatever reason, my artistry, my songs was making sense if a white person was singing them. And that is where I don't know. I truly do not know. As a Black pop star standing in front of you all, if America's ready for it. The music industry is so segregated and so racist. Why do you think that we had urban categories? That wasn't just like a fun thing. That was a coded racist category that just existed forever. Why is it that all of these artists who are alternative and make country and all these different Black artists who clearly are making all these different genres automatically get subjugated into R&B or rap? I've been in so many meetings where people went, you would be better off if you're a rapper. You'd be better off doing a neo-soul. You would be better off doing the things that they have decided are okay for Black people to do. And I have just refused to do them.
How many What Happened To stories have I got on my channel and talked about? From Jordan Sparks to Christina Milian to Seven Streeter, Coco Jones, the McLean sisters, where the labels explicitly did not know what to do with their talent because some of these artists maybe had a little bit too much soul. Oh, you're too young for that. We want you to be bubblegum pop. Too much soul. We don't want to hear that. Coco Jones, the McLean sisters. But then you have people like Jordan Sparks that they wanted to make pop very early on. And later on, she said, I want to mature and I want to do more R&B. And they were like, don't want to fund it. That is exactly why Ariana Grande was afforded the record The Way. They were cool with promoting that as pop. When it came to Jordan Sparks, it was too urban. So it's like there's these very, very strict, rigid things that it's like, we see you like this as a Black pop star. We want to control what that looks like on you. So to round this out and keep everything on the best of notes, I want to talk about who do we got? Who's the lineup? Who are people that you guys should be keeping an eye out for? And by the way, this list is not exhaustive. It is not just for Gen Z artists. I'm talking about, and I will be listing people who I just think people will like, younger people will like. And for this section, I will be listing Black pop girlies, and also some of the girls are biracial. I wanted to include a lot of people. One thing that's a microcosm of this, and maybe I'll do a video on it, but I do think colorism plays a part in who the labels are more willing to promote in pop music specifically. But I don't think there's as many dark-skinned Black girls being pushed or promoted. So yeah, I just wanted to add that note in there because that is a part of this convo. However, I have spoke on this a couple times here and there throughout my videos, so maybe I just need to do a full one at some point. But anyways, let's get it. So we know for the mainstreamers, we got SZA, Doja Cat, The Weeknd, Lil Nas X for a minute, Khalid kind of, but I did a whole video talking about kind of the stalling of his career. Tinashe, made a whole video on her. Go check that out. She's been the pop it girl the entire time. She just gives us that versatility. One of my favorites, hands down, has been Jay Stevens. I mentioned her before a month or two ago. And shout out to you, like, she supports the channel she watches. I was so shocked. I'd been listening to her stuff for a little bit. But go check out some of her new songs, SMH, Afterbody, Kiss It, her new song, Boyfriend Forever. So on repeat. She has a look, she has the image, she has all of that. Like, it's glam. Victoria Monet. I know she does lean more sonically R&B, but I think she has all of the performance components to really be a heavy hitter in pop. She just has a lot of like Janet J undertones. Justine Skye. She's kind of come back out with this dance pop, some house influence. She did the Kaytranada collab this summer that has been on repeat, Ooh La La. And I like this rebrand for Justine. She says she's at Warner Records now, and she says they support the vision, so we will see. She's one of those girls that started off in R&B, but like it just wasn't getting the traction.
I'm switching up my sound a little bit. I know, y'all, if you've been following me for a while, you know I'm mostly like an R&B girly. But then I realized I like to be outside. So why am I not making music that I actually listen to and that I actually want to party to?
Pink Pantheress. I think she's a bit more out there, right? Bedroom pop, alt pop, UK garage influence with this drum and bass, and some R&B. So she kind of has a little bit of everything, which I love. Even though she has those vocal filters, I think her vocal control is really cool. I think she pulls some really awesome references. Olivia Dean is another person that people have been raving about lately. She does have a lot of like soul and R&B influences, but she is an upcoming pop artist. So I gotta check out her new album, but check her out for sure. She has a great voice. It's more of like a rundown, a quick run through. Bree Runway, pop, hyper pop with more hip hop vibes. Shy Girl, more experimental, electronic pop. So again, I get it. It's not, some of you guys can choose off this list kind of what you feel fits your taste. I know everybody's not into electro, but it's fun. FKA Twigs, electronic. Some people even call it art pop. I think she's really experimental. And then there's Rachel Chunariri. I hope I said that correctly. She does indie pop, and her music just feels like this breath of fresh air. It feels like coming of age romance movie music. I love it. Alameda, alt pop rock. Alt pop rock. She just did a song with Doechii. She's really fun. She's really cool, especially if you like rock music. She might be somebody that's like a good in between. Please comment down below some more people. And before I go, I want to thank NordVPN for partnering on today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.